Just double checking that the recording is working before. Okay, great. Excuse me. Hi everyone, my name is Emily Sullivan. I'm the Adolescent and Youth Engagement Manager for Family Planning 2020. And today we're going to be doing an orientation for you all, the new CSO and youth focal points. So before we do introductions, I just wanted to say on behalf of the Secretariat that we would all like to wish you a congratulations. It's a very exciting time for the partnership because you all have joined either as youth focal points or as civil society focal points. And we're tremendously grateful to you all for being a part of the partnership and for being such great influencers in your community, in your country, in your region, and in the world. So just first and foremost, from the FP 2020 Secretariat that sits in Washington, D.C., we would like to say congratulations to you all. I see that Rose cannot hear. I have a feeling there's probably some other people who cannot hear.
Yes, Emily, there's a message from Charles as well. He's saying he cannot hear us.
I think that's Rose Charles, yes.
Oh yeah, that's the same person.
Yeah.
But others can hear, so I think...
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to proceed. If you can just write her to say that you hope she can log out and then log back in using audio, that would be great.
Okay.
Okay, great. So that is the congratulations, which we wanted to first make sure that we did before we started. I've already introduced myself. My name is Emily Sullivan, and you have all received emails from me. We've also received emails from some of my colleagues. So I will first ask, if you don't mind, my colleagues from the Family Planning 2020 Secretariat to introduce themselves. Monday?
Hi everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. My name is Mandolin Boo, and I'm the Advocacy and Civil Society Engagement Manager here at the Secretariat. And I, together with Emily, will be the two people and our other Secretariat colleagues that will be working with you closely. So congratulations for joining the family, and looking forward to working with you. And I do have another colleague here with me.
Hi everyone, my name is Faith Tabafor. I'm the new coordinator for the reference group. I'll also be working alongside Monday on advocacy. So this is my first couple of days on the team, so I'm really excited to be here and meet all of you.
Great, so that's Monday and Faith, and I am quite sure you're going to be hearing from both of them. We also have Oyinye on the line. Oyinye, would you like to introduce yourself? She's also from the Secretariat. I'm not sure if you're muted, Oyinye. Okay, well, Oyinye might be otherwise not able to speak at the moment.
She texts and say hello everyone. I think she's trying with her.
Okay, great. So Oyinye is the Anglophone Africa Associate, and so you all will meet her at the workshop that's coming up, and I'm sure you're going to receive lots of emails from her. So just to be clear, if you can't hear us, just chat in the chat box, and Monday will and Oyinye and other FP 2020 colleagues will try to help sort you out. They may need to contact Emma Anderson, who is the one that manages our webinar series for them. Okay, so today we're going to go over a little bit of background about FP 2020, some opportunities for us going forward, and how to collaborate and work together. But before I do that, I'd like to ask the others on the line to introduce yourselves, since this is going to be a new family, a new collaboration. So first, I'd like to ask, let's see, I'm not sure who you are. ITEL Prime 4. I see you already are unmuted and we can hear you. So if you want to speak, feel free. No? Okay. I'm just gonna, if you're not speaking, please mute.
Hi, Emily. Can I just go
Hi,
first?
Nina Bina, please, yes.
Sure. So my name is Nina Bina David from Tanzania. I am now the youth focal point here in Tanzania. Very excited. I volunteer with a coalition called Tanzania Youth and Adolescents Reproductive Health. But I also work with a company called Secretariat to implement education and health in Tanzania.
Great.
Hi, everyone.
Great, thanks, Nina. Would Comfort, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. This is Comfort from Malawi. I work with Youth and Counseling, UNECO in short. I coordinate a project called Linkages. I think you've heard of it. I hope you have. Mainly, we also reach out to adolescent girls in issues of family planning as well as HIV and AIDS. Thank you.
Great, thanks. And Beverly, would you like to introduce yourself?
Oh, I'll come in and say, Krista, come in and I'll talk about the workshop.
Okay, I think Beverly might be otherwise distracted. Farha?
Emily, so ITEL Prime 4 is Halimatu from Gambia.
Okay, great. Hi, Halima in Gambia. Great to have you on the line. Would others like to introduce themselves? Ducho Mio, I think you're already have yourself unmuted. Would you like to introduce yourself? Mute. Any others on the line that like to introduce themselves? Perhaps Patience?
Hi, Emily. I was hearing a lot of background noise, like somebody wanted to
I'm
talk.
sorry. Quite exciting start.
Yeah, I know it's exciting. It's like thanks for granting us this opportunity. But since I need to introduce myself, I'm Patience Mgolimwale from Malawi, working with care as learning and advocacy manager. My work entails trying to consolidate all the evidence that's generated on the ground. We're doing community engagement on increasing uptake of family planning method, more especially the modern contraception. So basically, we're working with the DHOs, like the district health officers in Inchewu, plus at a national level, work with the reproductive health unit to consolidate that learning and advocate for more resources, resource flow, as well as coordination at various district levels, so that the resources flow equally and they are located more especially to hard to reach areas.
Great, thank you so much, Patience. And Patience will be one of the CSO focal points.
Yes. Oh yeah, that's my new role. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Patience.
Thank you.
Maria, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Maria Amelia. I'm from Mozambique. I'm representing youth. I am working at Modefa Association for Sexual Reproduction and Health for younger people. I am youth officer in my ward.
Great, thank you so much, Maria. And let's see, Natasha, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, unfortunately, I missed all the introductions because my connection went out. My name is Natasha. I'm from Zambia. I'm coming from an organization known as Copper Rose, and we are a youth-led organization working on sexual and reproductive health, women's economic empowerment, and empowerment of young people. And I'm very, very excited to be one of the Youth Focal Point members. I can't wait to meet you all, and I look forward to the engagement. I'm not really sure what else I'm supposed to say,
No,
but
that's perfect.
Okay, great, thanks.
Great, and I think the last person, if I'm not mistaken, is Rose Aya. Are you available to speak? It doesn't look like you have a microphone in front of your name. If you haven't had a chance to speak, then I would encourage you to introduce yourself in the chat box. We would love to hear from you, but luckily this won't be the only opportunity to introduce yourself to everyone. Great. So now we're officially going to get started, and we're going to first go over a little bit about what FP 2020's history is. So you all probably know, or very likely do know, that FP 2020 is a global partnership that was started with the London Summit in 2012. Please do mute yourself if you are not speaking. There's quite a few of you who need to be muted. Okay, so the partnership focuses on the goal of reaching 120 million more women and girls with contraceptives by the year 2020. And it was launched, as I said, in 2012 at the London Summit. However, you likely also know that the partnership was renewed in 2017 at the, oh, my apologies. Monday, we're having an issue with the PowerPoint, but apologies, everyone. Hopefully it's going to work from now on. I just want to, yep, there we go. Okay. So the partnership kicked off in 2012, but was renewed in 2017. As many of you know, your countries have additional commitments towards the goal. While the numeric goal matters, it's also really important to not just focus on numbers, but also on the rights of women and girls to decide freely and for themselves whether, when, and how many children they want to have. So this is really the principle behind the goal. It's really the reason that we are all a part of this partnership. And we are really very confident that you all being a part of this partnership will help us to achieve this overarching goal, not just of the 120 million, but of making sure that young people and women everywhere have their rights met. So this goal, it very closely links to the Sustainable Development Goals. As many of you know, family planning is most closely linked to both health and gender equity, the Sustainable Development Goals 3 and 5, but it also relates to many other of these 17 goals. And so we are really grateful for your partnership in helping us to achieve the family planning goals that are on the track to achieving all these other goals. So when I say partnership and when I say movement and other things, what exactly does that mean? So what this means is there's a network. There's a network of people that include the FP 2020 Secretariat, which is where Mande, myself, Oyinye, and Faith work. There's about 20 to 25 of us at the FP 2020 Secretariat who are working to support the rest of this network. So beyond us at the Secretariat are the most important people, which are yourselves, data and measurement experts, governments. We have our reference group, which is our board. Essentially, there's a large network of all different kinds of people and institutions and donors and research institutes that are all working together to advance young people and women's access to contraceptives. So this network focuses on a few different things, essentially 4 areas. The first is driving country level support. The second is around data and the use of data, strengthening advocacy and rights and issues related to young people. And then of course, making sure that knowledge and evidence is all utilized. I'm going to first go through the country level support piece. After that, we'll pause to take a few questions, and then we'll move forward from there. So the country level piece, all of you know that your countries have made commitments, which is the very first step for any country to officially be a part of the family planning community. So once a commitment is made, and ideally that commitment is made in partnership with civil society and including young people, but we know that's not always the case. So hopefully you have a commitment that you think represents some of your country's most critical needs. That differs by country. But once the commitment is made, then a focal point team is structured. And that focal point team consists of government, civil society, donors, and now youth-led organizations and networks. So you all work together at the country level to help advance family planning based on the commitment and based on other strategies and costed implementation plans that you all may have. Another way we support countries to reach their family planning goals is through data, as I mentioned. We're not going to go into this in too much detail, but I would encourage you to check the data page on FP 2020's website. We partner with an organization called Track 20, and Track 20 has really excellent data for all of your countries on a variety of indicators. In addition, they also have M&E officers, monitoring and evaluation officers within each of your countries to help track the goals that your country has set. So we work with countries around the data piece, and what that really looks like is working with the M&E officers as well as doing data consensus workshops within each country to help determine progress against the goal. Some of you may have attended those data consensus workshops. Hopefully, if not, we can get you invited to that in the future. So we have the commitment, the focal point structure, the data improvement, and now we have something that you all will be a part of here at the bottom, which is, well, hopefully you've already been a part of, which is around strategizing and planning based on the commitments and the needs. So you'll see here we have that both the costed implementation plan and as well as the workshop, both combined, using the CIP and the workshop as an opportunity to help decide what should the plan of action be to actually implement family planning related strategies. So what does this mean? At the workshop that you all will be attending, you'll use the cost of the implementation plan or the strategic plans that your countries may have to develop an action plan. And this action plan will be specifically for the next 18 months and will be a short list of priorities. If you want to achieve the goal, the commitment, what's in the cost of implementation plan, these are the specific things that need to happen in the next 18 months. This will be a part of the workshop, and you all will learn more about that in the in preparation for the workshop, and hopefully also from focal points. So this is one of the ways, or this is essentially the flow of how we collaborate with partners, through commitments, through focal point structure, data, helping them develop costed implementation plans, which if you've not seen your country's costed implementation plan or CIP, then go to your FP 2020 country webpage, which I shared with all of you previously, and there you'll be able to see that plan in detail. So you'll use that plan at the workshop to develop accelerated action plans, and that plan will be more detailed as far as what needs to happen in the next 18 months. So start to strategize what you would like that to look like. So as I mentioned, as a part of that country engagement, we convene all the focal points every 18 months, which is in line with the action plan that you all will make. And at these workshops is where we really decide what will be happening with other partners, with donors, with government officials, with international partners, to really help determine what are the prioritized needs for the next 18 months. So here's a photo from one of the previous focal point workshops, and you soon will be featured in a similar photo in the coming months. So the country focal point structure. Previously, this structure only included the blue areas, which are government, country, and donor. We didn't previously have a civil society or youth focal point, but now, thankfully, we also have this addition of civil society and youth focal points to help us really make sure young people in civil society are included in the decision-making process. All of you have received the terms of reference. And in this terms of reference is quite detailed, but essentially we want to pull out, two key pieces. One is that your position as an advocate, as a civil society member, as a member of the youth community, is to make sure that the priorities that your community has are well represented in the efforts of the focal points, in the cost and implementation plans, in the plan that gets developed out of the workshop, and just to ensure that the priorities are well represented. The second piece that we really want to make sure you're clear on, please do mute yourself, especially if you're at a birthday party. It seems someone singing happy birthday in the background. Okay. So these duties in the terms of reference are a little bit lengthy, and we do acknowledge that. However, the main function that you will hope to serve is to make sure that the priorities of the community are represented in the terms of reference, and that you're able to facilitate a flow of information between civil society, youth-led organizations, youth networks, and the other donors and government agencies that are part of the focal point team. So I'm going to pause here to take questions, because I know that I just said quite a few things about the history of FP 2020, as well as your role as a focal point. So we'll take a moment here and check the chat box for questions or concerns at this point. Any questions from anyone about your role or the history of FP 2020 or how the country support aspect functions? Okay. Oh, it looks like two people have raised their hand.
So we have Itel and Nina Bina. Nina Bina, you can go if you have a question. You're muted.
Yes. So, hi, Emily. Thank you for the introduction. Can you hear me?
We can.
Oh, okay. So.
Nina Bina, you're breaking off. We cannot hear. Oh, you're muted again.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Great. So I just wanted to ask, on the basis you said that before you did not have the part of the CSO and youth focal point, and something about you have just brought it in Is this like, has it happened before, or is this the first bunch of youth focal points and CSOs, and what contributed to the fact that you have decided now to like bring along the CSOs and the youth focal points?
Great question. So the short answer is that civil society focal points were added to the focal point teams in each country about 2 years ago. However, you all are the first class of youth focal points to ever have existed within FP 2020. So congratulations to you all. This is a sign of progress. It is a good thing. Of course, I wish it would have happened sooner. However, we're going to make the best of this opportunity going forward and hope that in post-2020 that this model can be further strengthened and improved. So yes, this is the first time we're having youth focal points. We've had young people engaged in lots of other ways, but not as focal points. And for civil society, as I mentioned, they only were added to the system about 2 years ago.
And Emily, this is Manda. So just to also add on what Emily said, when civil society focal points were introduced or added to the structure about 2 years ago, also the idea and the assumption was that, you know, they would be including youth-led organizations as part of civil society in countries, and which actually happened in some countries more than others. But I think there was also a decision to ensure that we actually do have a youth voice in the focal point structure, and hence you're joining the family.
Great, thank you very much. Am I allowed to ask another question?
Sure.
Yes, so my other question is, when you were saying about the action plan, I'm not so sure if it was my internet or I just couldn't get all what you were trying to say concerning the action plan and the country commitments. You don't have to go back and say it all again, but you can at least give me a hint. I really couldn't hear that well.
No, that's fine. I'm happy to do that again, just briefly. We're having a little bit of issues with the PowerPoint. So here. So essentially, you know, commitments are made, focal points are identified, the data, we work with data partners to help meet those commitments, but we know that not every country has a costed implementation plan. Certainly Tanzania does, and most of the countries in this region have costed implementation plans. So if your country does have one, and likely has other related strategies, if you're able to Grand Prime, I think that's our colleague from the Gambia, can you please? Yeah, so if Monday, can you ask Emma how to mute people, because it's not letting me mute.
Hi, Fatu. I already sent her a message. Fatu from Gambia, if you can hear us, please mute yourself if you're not speaking.
Great. So sorry, Nina Bina. Yes. So
that's okay.
What happens is that the cost and implementation plans, as many of you know, are very long-term. They could be 5 years, 10 years long, depending on the plan. And so what we'll be doing at the workshop is essentially making a prioritized list of prioritized actions that need to happen in a much shorter term. So essentially within the next 12 to 18 months, what are the absolute necessary steps that need to happen in order to make sure that costed implementation plans for family planning or other family planning strategies that Tanzania or other countries may have, what needs to happen in the next 12 to 18 months. So that's essentially will be the documents that comes out of the workshop.
Okay.
Any other questions before we move on?
No. Oh. Thank you, Emily.
Okay, great.
Emily, there's so we have, I think Halimatu raised her hand.
Okay, great. If you want to unmute yourself and go ahead and speak, feel free.
And Comfort as well raised her hand. So if you have a question, go ahead, Comfort.
Hi. I think after you beamed the picture of the previous focal points, you mentioned of a few workshops that took place. Maybe I didn't hear you correctly, but I wanted clarification. How many groups of focal points are there? Of course, I do understand we would be the third chunk, but yeah, basically, I just want to understand how many groups of us are there, and in our group, how many are we, and which countries are involved in that group. Thank you.
So Emily, Eva is in the room right now. She would like to introduce herself and probably take that question.
Great, thank you.
Hi, everyone. Apologies for being late. My name is Eva Ross. I am the director of the country support team here at the FP 2020 Secretariat. I just wanted to add my welcome and the excitement that I'm sure Monday and Emily have shared about having you all join us, and looking forward to meeting you all at the workshop next month. So regarding the last question, there are 18 countries that are part of what we call the Anglophone Africa portfolio. And if you're ready, we can also send these to you by email, but let me see if I can list them all out correctly. So in alphabetical order, we have Egypt, Ethiopia, of course, as the host country. We have Ghana, Kenya, Liberia, Malawi, Mozambique, Nigeria, Rwanda, Sierra Leone, South Sudan, Somalia, Tanzania, Uganda, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. So those are 16 countries who have current commitments to FP 2020. Additionally, the 17th and 18th countries that we have invited are countries who are in the process of finalizing their FP 2020 commitments. Those countries are the Gambia and Angola. So those are the 18 countries that will have representation. And to the question as far as the groups, so as you saw from the previous slides, each country delegation is invited to send a government focal point, a civil society focal point, youth focal point, and 1 to 2 donor focal points. The latter are represented by UNFPA, and in the majority of the other countries, also USAID. So I hope that answers the question.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
You're
yes,
very welcome.
I know Halimatu from Gambia, you have a question or comment? If you can unmute yourself. Beverly, go ahead. I think maybe Halimatu is having technical problems. Halimatu, feel free to write your question or comment in the chat box if you cannot speak. Beverly? Alrighty, I don't think people can hear.
Okay, it seems like we are having a little bit of issues with Beverly answering her questions, but I would encourage you to type them into the chat box and we'll do our best to answer additional questions now. We'll have a couple more opportunities for questions later on, so don't worry, this wasn't your only opportunity to ask questions that you may have. Great, so, and you should also check this website, the country pages, which has lots of information about your country documents, your country's commitment, cost implementation plan, data, etc. And so if you have any questions that are related to this, feel free to first check the website and then go from there and see if there's additional information you may need from us. All right. So as I mentioned, these are the 4 areas. We've gone over the country level support piece. We're not going to go into too much detail about the data and performance management. You'll learn more about that at the workshop, and you can also go onto your country's page to see what kind of data we already have for your country. So I'm now going to go into the focus area on global advocacy, rights, and youth. So first, I'm going to talk a little bit more about what does FP 2020's work around adolescents and youth really look like. You'll see we have a goal and 4 different objectives here. I won't read them in too much detail. You can read them more closely when we send out the slides. But essentially what's here is FP 2020 Secretariat and the partnership at large collaborates with all different kinds of partners to make sure that technical assistance and evidence-based approaches are deployed to different countries as needed based on what's happening in that place. So for instance, if you're from the Gambia and there's a specific need on improving comprehensive sexuality education in the Gambia, we work to identify resources and technical experts that may be able to support you in that effort. So the adolescent and youth work is focused around ensuring evidence-based approaches are used to meet adolescent and youth needs, and also to ensure that young people are fully engaged in decision-making and have opportunities for partnership. So that's essentially the overarching aspects of the adolescent and youth work. There are a variety of ways that we meet these objectives, and we'll likely be able to talk about this more in depth, as well as hear from you all about some of the ways you think that this can happen. So specifically around how we work with young people, as I mentioned, and as Nina asked us, is this the first time that young people are focal points? And the answer is yes. And however, this isn't the first time we've been working with young people. We've been working with them in a variety of ways as reference group members. And our reference group is essentially our board, the FP 2020 board, which has 7 ministers of health, different leading CEOs from different INGOs, as well as 2 young people who sit on the global partnership. This global partnership's essentially our board, what we call the reference group. So we engage with young people on the high-level decision-making now as youth representatives and focal points at the regional and country level, as grantees through the rapid response mechanism. Although FP 2020 is not a donor, we do have a small grants mechanism called the rapid response mechanism. And it's here where we have purposely tried to expand the grantees to include youth-led organizations. And lastly, we engage young people as official commitment makers. You may have thought that only countries can make commitments, but actually youth-led organizations and youth networks have also made commitments to FP 2020. We now have about 8 youth-led organizations that have made commitments to FP 2020, and this demonstrates that young people are not beneficiaries, they're also contributing members towards their country's goals and are taking leadership. So some of what we discussed today is featured on this webpage, which is the Adolescent and Youth webpage. It looks a little bit differently now. There's a different photo, but don't be confused. It's still the same website. And in addition, we will be updating this, and I'll be looking for y'all's feedback on how to improve this site. But for now, it features great resources, including a map of youth-led organizations from all countries within FP 2020. And we will also be updating that map to include up to 500 youth-led organizations in 2019. So that's some of the focus on adolescents and youth. I'm now going to pass it on to Monday to talk more about the advocacy and civil society engagement. Monday, I think you're muted.
I'm sorry, I was muted. Hi again, everyone. So thank you so much, Emily, for that background. Just to give you a little bit of a highlight and kind of at a glance of the civil society engagement and advocacy portfolio. So like Emily was describing the partnership. So basically our success requires building strong and sustainable partnerships with civil society organizations at the country level and also at the global level. So as the Secretariat, we're working working with and supporting civil society champions and youth leaders like yourselves to forge strong relationships with donors and governments to ensure that, you know, countries are on track in meeting their FP 2020 commitments and goals. So as you can see on the slide, we do have our vision, which is our kind of long-term goal to ensure a meaningful and sustainable engagement of civil society in advancing advocacy and accountability to accelerate progress. And our work is divided into two parts. We have a global level focus as well as a country level focus. And at the global level, basically what we're doing is to work with partners to ensure that we're enhancing alignment of global advocacy efforts among civil society partners. As you all know, we work with a number of organizations and everyone has a lot that they're doing around advocacy for family planning. So trying to ensure that we are all coordinated and aligned and that we are elevating the global family planning agenda through advocacy and making sure that we're strengthening high-level political engagement and continue the momentum around FP 2020 commitments. At the country level, which is where we'll be working closely with you all, through the focal point structure, again, as we explained, we're trying to strengthen the engagement of civil society to maximize their contribution to the FP 2020 discussions at the country level in order to accelerate local action and ensure that there's more impact. We are also strengthening technical capacity of civil society partners and youth partners. So as Emily described, we do have a number of technical staff at the Secretariat, but also we can link you up with other technical experts in different thematic areas. So feel free to reach out to us on that. And lastly, we're also working to enhance the role of civil society and young people in accountability. And basically, okay, let's see. We have someone who needs to mute their mic. Okay, I think we can go ahead. So then, Emily, you're muting me. Hello, can you hear me? Hello, Emily, can you hear me?
We can hear you, Monday.
Oh, great. So I just wanted to say that the last piece of what we do is around accountability and basically trying to support civil society and young people to participate and be active in holding their governments to account on their FP 2020 commitments. And we can speak more about, you know, the various ways we're working with countries to ensure that. Next slide, Emily. Did she move to the next slide? So in terms of our areas of focus, if you can look at the slide, Emily, next slide. Can Emily hear us?
Maybe we've lost Emily.
I think so. Oh, there she is. Great. So in terms of our areas of focus at the global level and the country level, I want you to focus. So the first column is the areas of focus as far as our global efforts are concerned. And these are around increasing donor funding and sustainable domestic financing, strengthening supply chain, and meeting the reproductive health and needs of adolescents and youth. So advocacy around those areas in partnership with a number of partners that are listed on the second column, but that list is definitely not exhaustive. We work with so many other partners. But I want you to focus on the third column. And these are the areas of focus at the country level. And basically most of these come from the priorities and action plans that countries agree on, also just from conversations that we've had with countries. So we are mainly focusing on mobilization of domestic resources, so a lot of support to countries around budget advocacy, fostering use of data for evidence-based advocacy. So again, working with our data experts and data partners, as well as communication partners to ensure that we are supporting civil society and youth advocates to use, understand, translate, and basically use data for effective advocacy. Also supporting civil society focal points, and I'm sure I'll be working closely with you all to do CSO mapping, coalition building, strengthening that, strengthening CSO engagement and youth engagement in your country platforms, developing or implementing advocacy plans or strategies around campaigning, and also, like I said earlier, around tracking commitments and accountability efforts. So those are some of the areas that we support countries, and looking forward to working with you to move those forward depending on your country priorities. So we also have a web page. If you go to FP 2020 website and click on CSO engagement and advocacy web page, we do have a number of resources on that page. We put meeting, webinar recordings and meeting notes and so many other good things. So you'll get more information there, but I think this is just a brief kind of highlight of what the portfolio does, and definitely looking forward to working with you.
If you are speaking, please make sure you mute yourself. I'm afraid I don't have the ability to mute others whose mic is loud, so please do mute yourself if you're not speaking. Okay.
So Emily, before we move on, there was a question, CIP question from Beverly from Kenya, and Eva is happy to respond to that.
Great, go for it, Eva.
Thank you. Let me, sorry, just to make sure that I'm responding correctly, let me just scroll up so I can get the gist of Beverly's question. So Beverly, correct me here if I'm wrong, but if I understand your question correctly, your inquiry was regarding the CIPs, the cost and implementation plans, interventions and activities that are within that, and also interventions or activities that may not be at the CIP. Is that correct? Oh, I see. So you may not be able to.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you for confirmation. So just maybe this is an opportunity to really highlight that these cost and implementation plans are at very high level, and they're strategic documents that the government, with the help of other stakeholders and partners in country, develop. Each country develops a different timeline for these CIPs. So if we haven't yet shared it with you, perhaps after this call, we can share with you the link to our website that also has, is the host of the CIP resource kit. This is what we share with countries that are thinking of developing their first cost and implementation plan. And also in each of our FP 2020 country websites, you will find that country's current cost and implementation plan also for your reference. So as you will see, if you dig into these various country CIPs, Some countries do a 5-year, others do 7. We've even had some 8-year plans. So it really does depend on how these CIPs align with countries' other, sort of national strategies, as the CIP is meant to cost out these family planning activities. So Beverly, your point around identifying activities that may not be in a CIP are very correct. The CIPs, when they're drafted, especially for countries where they might be in the last couple of years of it, likely will not represent everything that's going on in the country. It's meant to capture things at a much higher level. So there is, in fact, opportunity in your respective roles, in engagement with other focal points, other stakeholders that you represent as the youth focal point for your country, to bring up other priorities, especially, for example, in countries where when the CIP was designed, sometimes different challenges and roadblocks may come up in implementation, and a CIP is not something that a country is going to have the resources, or the time, frankly, to be able to update, to really reflect some of these fast-moving and changing priorities. So I hope that gives you a bit of an idea of what the CIPs are meant to be. They are meant to be the overall guiding strategic document for a country's family planning program. By no means, though, does it mean that it is exclusively listing out all the activities happening in a country. I hope that answers your question, Beverly.
She said yes, that's
Great.
clear.
Thank you.
Great, and so this is the web page we referred to earlier, and you can click on, this is just an example from Tanzania, but you can click on your own country to get access to some of the documents that Eva was just referencing. And I would like to encourage you that, yes, if you notice especially adolescent and youth needs are not sufficiently captured in your own country's national strategies or cost of implementation plans, this is a really good opportunity to try to make sure that advocacy around that issue is brought into the country planning going forward. If it's been missed so far, hopefully conversations that happen during the workshop and following will help to bridge some of the gaps that likely exist. Okay, so Monday has just gone over the aspects of the CSO and advocacy portfolio, and I've gone over some of the work that we do around adolescents and youth. So now that we've talked a bit about your role, Monday and I and Eva have talked a little bit about what the FP 2020 Secretariat does, we'd like to now raise some ways for us to collaborate together. So as focal points, there are a few things, this isn't a comprehensive list, this is just a highlight of some of the things that we can do together. But essentially, as focal points and as the FP 2020 Secretariat, we hope that we can work together in a few different ways. One is the FP 2020 network, as you all saw from the diagram on the first slide, is quite wide. We have thousands of members worldwide who participate in webinars and receive our newsletter and go to our website to access resources and check that map of youth-led organizations. So we want to make sure that the good work being done in your country, possibly even by your own organization or perhaps by your civil society coalition, is featured prominently within FP 2020. So there's, we have a monthly newsletter, we have blogs, articles, our social media is quite well trafficked. So there's a good opportunity for us to just showcase good work that you're doing, lessons learned, and other challenges that you might want to share with the wider community. So that's one example. Another is that network can also be used to help identify technical experts that may be able to support you, or evidence or data that is out there to support some of the work that you're doing. You may be running into challenges related to youth access to family planning, financing, rights-based family planning, high-impact practices, advocacy, postpartum, post-abortion family planning, a wide variety of issues. And if you have something specific that you would like support on, we will do our best to identify a technical expert in that area, existing evidence and data on that topic, and link you to those resources. In addition, something we can be a little bit more proactive with is providing you with feedback, especially related to CSO and youth engagement strategies, advocacy strategies, as well as other documents, whether it's a CIP, a commitment update, other items where we can provide strategic feedback to make sure that some essential issues are really covered. Another way is through the rapid response mechanism. I want to be clear that FP 2020 is not a donor, and we also can't guarantee that just because you're a focal point that you'll be able to receive funding through the grant mechanism. However, we also want you to be aware that this is something that exists and that can be leveraged for important opportunities, especially those that are time sensitive, meaning something that has just happened or something that will happen, likely something advocacy related for you all. The rapid response mechanism grant system could be useful. And we'll be sure to send around a link to that, and you can see more details of what that grant mechanism really looks like. The last piece here is we know that there's really good opportunities for learning, especially with other focal points, other countries that are doing specific work that you may be interested in. Perhaps you know that there's another country that is doing well on reaching adolescents and youth, and you want to learn from them. We can also link you to other country partners. Of course, the workshop is a really good opportunity. And there also could be virtual exchanges using webinars or platforms like this one. So these are just a few examples of ways that we can collaborate together. There are many others, but this is just to give you an idea of some of the things that we can look to do together. So at this point, I'm going to take another pause for questions. I know we had just taken a couple previously, so we took a little bit of an earlier pause about questions, or a pause for questions earlier, so there might not be any more at this point, but I will check to see if anyone's hand is raised.
Natasha, I think, has a question.
Okay, great. Go for it, Natasha.
For me, you'll not see me now. But no, whoever is closing this door will take you out. Okay, yeah. Okay, fine.
Natasha? Actually, it looks like Natasha may have actually dropped off.
Yeah, she just dropped off, but she had her hand raised.
Okay.
And Jita more from I can't remember where he's from. They were just saying this presentation is educative. We'll appreciate having this presentation. So just to let you know that we will share the presentation with you all.
Yes. Yeah, we will definitely share the slides, and hopefully the recording goes to plan, and we can also share the recording for those of you who are having a little bit of difficulty connecting. Okay, well, we'll make sure that Natasha gets a chance to ask her question when she comes back on. Otherwise, we're gonna
she's someone from Gambia.
Move on now to the most immediate upcoming opportunity, which is related to the third Anglophone Africa Regional Workshop. I believe someone mentioned earlier wanting to know if this was the, at what stage of the focal point workshops you were in. This is obviously clear that we're now having the third workshop. We do them every 18 months or so. So now it's time for Anglophone Africa. I recognize that some of you, for instance, from Mozambique, may not identify with the word Anglophone, so apologies for that. But this is essentially a region that now is comprised of 16 countries. And I'm going to hand over to Krista Newhouse and Oyinye Eda, who are both on the Anglophone Africa team, to talk a little bit more about the workshop that you all have heard about already.
Emily, before we move on to Krista, ITEL Prime 4, which I think is Halimatu from Gambia, if I'm not mistaken. You've raised your hand. So if you have a question, please go ahead, and or you can just type your question on the chat box.
Aitel, do you have a question?
All right, so maybe we can just move on and she can, Jutomu, do you have a question? Go ahead. Both of you have to unmute yourselves. You're muted.
Jutomu, are you there from Liberia? I'm afraid you're muted.
Hello?
Oh, there you go. Yep, we can hear you.
Yeah, so I'm Jutomo Doughton Jr. from Liberia. I'd like to appreciate the team for the consultation today. I see that it is actually educative and it's meant to prepare us for, the successful implementation of the FP programs until 2020. For me, I really appreciate the fact that the youth, that we have a slot now for youth focus points across the country. And that's so much a vital role. Today, we even have been, engaging some young people in Liberia and talking about family planning issues. So I really feel like we are on path and working to ensure that we actually achieve our plans until 2020. And that is why I even posted not too long in a chat that there is a need for us to share the presentation so that we all can have access to it. I saw a couple of educated information in that, and I think we can make maximum use of that. But until then, I really appreciate the way the discussion is going. I think it's educative, and we can actually realize our dreams and, continue to make impacts in and around the world. Another thing I even saw was the art of sharing your article, social media page with the team, and that's something I'm just about to do, to open a kind of social media page that is actually going to be used in Liberia to share family planning messages to young people, because 95% of the population of Liberia make use of social media. So we are actually going to use the social media from our end here to ensure that young people have information to family planning and have access to quality information. I just thought of bringing that in. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you very much. And you're reminding me that, of course, one of the best opportunities for learning is amongst yourselves. And we will be collaborating regularly. At the workshop, we'll be defining how we want to collaborate going forward after the workshop. And there'll be lots of opportunities for us virtually and in person to exchange ideas and exchange things like what Jutumu has just mentioned. Okay, great. So I'm now going to pass it off. There'll be another opportunity for questions after this. So if you haven't had a chance, don't worry. But I'm now going to pass it off to Kristen Newhouse and Oyinye Eda to go over the details for the upcoming workshop. You all have received emails from Krista, and I likely also Oyinye at this point, so now you get a chance to hear their voice. Go ahead.
Thanks, Emily. Hello, everyone. This is Krista, and you've received lots of emails from me. I thought it'd be great for me to introduce myself. I am the Anglophone Africa Regional Manager here at FP 2020, working closely with Onyenye, who I introduced all of you to via email last week, and working closely with Eva, who was speaking earlier. You're coming in at a very exciting time. We have our workshop coming up that you all know about. So we're working very hard here to really develop a very robust workshop for all our focal points to engage with each other and with other countries. So we're really looking forward to meeting you all there. One thing I have up here on the screen, if you can all see it, is just the dates, which I'm sure that Monday and Emily have talked to you about, and also you received from me in emails as well. So Sunday will be the youth pre-meeting, which Emily will be running. On Monday, May 13th, is the CSO and youth meeting, which you'll also be a part of with Monday and Emily. And then Tuesday, May 14th through Friday, the 17th, is where all the focal points will be with you, the government focal points, the donor focal points, youth and CS. And this is where we'll have our sessions. So we have a very busy week for you. We're putting together our agenda right now, which we hope to share with you very soon. So stay tuned for that. I thought it might be helpful. I've sent you all this email as well about what our objectives are for the workshop and also our themes, but I thought it might be good for me to just talk about it with you here on this phone call. And if you have any questions, let me know. I sent you each country's email to all the focal points for some pre-workshop documents and pre-workshop planning. And one of the documents was called a consultation summary note. And so if you remember where that is or you have that, you can also refer back to that document. So this is where we list what our objectives are for the workshop. So I'm just going to read it to you so that we're all aware of really why we're getting together. So the objective is to strengthen a solution-focused approach and accelerating progress towards 2020 and beyond. And there's 4 ways that we see to do that: identifying gaps and challenges to achieving the Family Planning 2020 commitments and the cost and implementation plan, or the CIPs that Eva was talking about earlier. Number 2 is learning from other countries' experiences, including our high impact practices and best practices that you'll hear a lot about at our workshop. Number 3 is prioritizing actions and interventions for the next 18 months. And number 4 is reaffirming roles and supporting coordination and stakeholder engagement within the country. Good thing is you'll be at your country table working alongside all of your focal points. And I do hope that they've reached out to you and have started engaging with you also on the country worksheet. That was also part of this email. We definitely want to have you at the table and participating in that. So please let me know if you have any questions around that. The next thing I'll share is just our themes, and then I'll pause and take any questions that you have around that. These themes came out of, this is also in the summary note that I mentioned, these themes came out of talking to focal points in depth at a meeting in person, from surveys and phone calls, probably about 6 months previous to starting workshop planning, to really see what the focal points wanted to talk about and what were the themes that they really wanted to discuss at the workshop. And those 3 themes that came out of it were engagement with adolescents and youth, which you'll all be very happy to hear. Number 2 is engagement with faith leaders and faith community. And that'll be Monday leading that thematic discussion. We'll have a great session on that, as well as the adolescent youth one. And 3rd is financing for family planning, which will also be a theme of our workshop. So I've said a lot there. Let me pause and see if there's any questions, and then I'll talk to you a little bit about logistics as well. Let's see, there's a raise.
So Comfort, go ahead. You have a question or a comment?
Comfort, please unmute yourself. We'd be happy to answer your question.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't unmute myself. Anyway, I was saying I like the fact that you've brought up the issue of the worksheet, which I think was also highlighted in one of the emails, but I'm really and honestly not sure if my team, my Malawian team, has started working on that. And if they have, I would also like to use this platform to let them know to reach out to me. I would really love to be involved in that and maybe share some insights as well. Thank you.
Wonderful, Comfort. I can do that. I'll send the team an email as a check-in.
Okay, just to respond quickly. Just today I met the focal point person, the government focal point person, and we are planning to move forward with this. We had, I think she was engaged, and I think we really needed her guidance as a government focal point person. So Comfort, we're looking for you. I hope you receive some email in your inbox. But it's okay for Emily to also send more detailed information on that, so that I think we can move forward on this piece.
Okay, thank you. That's okay. I'll be waiting for that. That's fine. Thank you.
And of course, Comfort has the benefit of having a wonderful new CSO focal point patient who happens to be on the line. But I realize that many of you have not yet or may not yet know your focal points in your various countries. I would encourage you to consider yourselves to be their colleagues. And so yes, Krista, Mande, and I can do our best to make sure that you are invited and copied in on emails and all of that. However, I would also encourage you to, now that you've all been on an email chain with the other focal points, you can reach out to them and ask them. I understand from an orientation that I had with FP 2020 that you all are developing, or we are developing, a draft worksheet in the workup to the upcoming workshop. I stand ready to participate fully in the process. So essentially, I'm just encouraging you all that you're now a focal point just like everyone else, and therefore you should consider yourselves a colleague and reach out to let people know you're ready to meet up. And perhaps you reaching out that way will make the group realize, oh, right, yeah, we need to get together. Let's do this. Thank you for the suggestion. Bless me, or Comfort, or Nina, or whoever it is that reaches out. They may be appreciative of you reaching out to help set up that convening to get the workshop preparation started.
Wonderful. That's a great point, Emily. Thank you for bringing that up. So just a final thing on the workshop before I hand it back over to Emily is a lot of you have sent in the information for your passport bio page and have signed the waiver for travel because, as you know, we need to start getting flight itineraries for you, and we need both of these documents before we do that. So, excuse me, if you haven't done that yet, could you send that to myself? You should have my email. If not, you can ping Emily for that again. We need to get those as soon as we can so we can get travel booked for you all. Anything further to add on the workshop?
Krista, could you give some details about visas? We've received some questions about that, and I know people are eager to know what the next step is.
Thank you. That is something we're currently working on. We know we're behind on the visa for all the focal points. We are working very closely with the Ethiopian government to get a letter from them for your visa, for your visas in country. So stay tuned on that. We should have that very soon for all of you.
And
thank you for bringing that up, Emily.
Most people will get visas on arrival, or will some people need to apply for visas on their own?
We're figuring that out now, but I think it's best, just because we don't know what the lines will be like at the airport. It's best if everyone gets their visa ahead of time.
Right. And please know that if you incur costs related to getting your visa, to document, get receipts for the visa application fee and things like of that nature, we will reimburse you at the workshop. However, if you need a new passport or you need to renew your passport, those are not costs that we typically cover. So we're specifically referring to the visa costs, not passport costs. I hope that's clear.
Correct. And in regards to travel, back to that, the sooner you send in those two documents, the passport bio page and the waiver, we can send out itineraries. Like I said, we'll send out some this week to those who have already submitted. And we'll need you to make this a priority and look at that quickly and send back to us so that we can book it for you.
Great, we have 2 questions. Patience, you want to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yes, just on the bio page, I just wanted, do you have a sample where you can find ourselves putting everything and anything there? Just a sample of how we can draft it.
I'm sorry, Patience, can you repeat that? You were cutting out a little bit.
Hello, what I'm saying is I just wanted to find out if you have a sample of the bio page, how it's supposed to look like, or how it's supposed to be drafted. We can find ourselves putting everything and anything there.
Right, so you want to sample the bio page. It's just the front page.
It's the picture page of your passport where they have that page that has your passport, your date of birth, when the passport was issued, expiration date, that full legal name, that page. It's usually like, if you open a book, it's like 2 pages of your information.
And you can just send us, it doesn't need to be formally scanned, you know, just send us a clear, take a picture with your mobile, email or WhatsApp that to any of us, as long as just it's easy to read your information so the ticket can be issued in the correct name.
So take a picture of your pretty face, Patience, on your bio page of the passport, on that front page of your passport, the one that you show people when you go to enter into the queue at the airport.
Great.
Okay, thank you. I get it.
Yeah, I know. It's funny calling it a bio. Yeah, it's just your biography. So yeah, it sounds much more technical than it really is. Halima, too, I see that you have a request here for an official invitation letter, but you haven't received it yet. I'll work on that and have that out to you today. That's not a problem. We can do that. That, just to be clear, that's not the visa letter. That's just an invitation from FP 2020.
Right. And if some of you, I know some of you are students, or you may be, working. I'm sure many of you are working at different places. If you need invitation letters to share with your bosses or your professors, do let us know. That's something we can provide you, because we realize this is essentially a full week of your time to participate in the workshop. And that is important for you to be able to show others, why you will be absent from school work or from work activities.
Thank you. And just one more thing on the travel, and then I'll hand it back over to you, Emily. Our hope is to have everything booked travel-wise by April 19th. And this week also, I'll be sharing the hotel and where the venue is as well. Also, Natasha, I've noted that you also need an invitation letter from Family Planning 2020. I'll have that to you today too.
Great. If anyone else has any other questions, feel free to keep putting things in the chat box. Also, we're always still available via email for any additional. Before we move on from this page, I just wanted to really emphasize something that I think is the most exciting about the workshop, and that I've heard from other young people that have attended the workshops previously. We've had young people attend the Francophone Africa workshop and the Asia workshop. They just weren't focal points. They were simply youth representatives attending the workshop. But you, as I mentioned, you're the first focal points. But before we move on, I just wanted to get you all to start thinking about, yes, there are advocacy opportunities around that accelerated action, the prioritized accelerated actions in the worksheet that you all will be working on. However, the workshop, in my mind, is actually the best advocacy moments are just over the course of the week. This is probably, I'm going to guess, likely one of the only times where you're going to be spending really extended period of time with officers from UNFPA, the Ministry of Health, USAID, other civil society. You're going to be in the same hotel, breakfast, lunch, dinners, coffee breaks, downtime. It's a really good opportunity to build rapport with others who are essentially your key country partners. And yes, the worksheet itself, and yes, the advocacy moments and making sure something is written down as you want it to be in a plan is important. But building that rapport with your partners is arguably just as important, because you're going to be going home together, and hopefully you will have built a rapport with them that you can build on and strengthen going forward. So I've heard from other young people that that's one of the most valuable aspects of the workshop, and I hope you find it to be the same. Any final pieces?
I have a question.
Okay.
Patience, if you have a question, please go ahead.
I think just Patience and ITEL have forgotten to take down their hands, lower their hands. Yeah.
Sorry, I forgot to take off my hand. Sorry.
It's fine. No problem,
Yeah.
Patience. ITEL, I'm gonna lower your hand because I think you've had your hand up for a while, and I think you might have done it by accident. Masawa, actually, I'm not.
Yeah.
Good question. You guys. You're unmuted. If you'd like to ask your question, you've just raised your hand. Okay, you've lowered your hand.
There is a question from Jutamo about what will happen after 2020.
That's a great question, dude.
Great question.
That's actually something we're going to be talking a lot or somewhat about at the workshop. It's also something I've been working with the young people who are a part of the FP 2020 reference group. You all are, many of you, I believe, were invited to a consultation last week to help inform what post-2020 looks like. There'll be other opportunities as well to help structure what post-2020 looks like, but essentially there will be some form of a partnership post-2020. However, the specifics of that have not been defined yet. We had an online survey, which I hope you all had a chance to fill out. There were some key informant interviews, especially with young people were included, where the structure of that partnership is starting to we're starting to learn what that structure will look like. It will be announced later this year, and you all will be a part of that process and will very much be involved in help shaping what the post-2020 partnership looks like. So stay tuned, and we'll engage you and involve you as much as possible.
Emily, could I just add a little bit more to that?
Sure.
Thanks for that great question. I think one of the things we've been sharing with other focal points and other partners who have similarly asked that question, so just to add to Emily's detail, as the consultation continues, we are very happy to share that the donors and the core conveners for the movement have generously agreed to continue to support the Secretariat team here at FP 2020 until the beginning of 2022. The idea being is that while we recognize that this should be an in-depth consultation with all the relevant stakeholders, including yourselves at the country level, regional, global, etc., we want to make sure the momentum for the work as we continue to accelerate to the 2020 goals does not let up. And so by us having the funding at the Secretariat level, it will allow us to continue to work very closely with you all through 2019, through 2020. The idea being that the formal next steps of this partnership would be announced probably at the next International Conference for Family Planning, which will either be in late 2020 or early 2021. And then we can use the year of 2021 as a transition year from one movement to the next. The hopes of that is that we don't miss a step in working with all of you to really support you in ensuring those country goals are met or they're progressed.
Thanks, Eva. That's really useful. So yeah, don't worry. FP 2020 isn't going away the second that it hits 2020. As Eva said, we'll be here through 2022, and we will help to transition to what the new partnership looks like, and we'll be engaging you all as much as we can in determining what that new partnership will look like. Okay, I'm going to move on, and then at the very end, we'll take a final pause for questions. I want to recognize that many of you are very well traveled. You've been far and wide all over the world, but perhaps some of you have not traveled as frequently. And we want to make sure whether you are well traveled or whether this is the first time you're traveling, that you feel safe. And although we've put these slides about safety at the end of the presentation, I want to emphasize that, as they say, safety first. Just because this is at the end of the presentation doesn't mean it's not important. I want to emphasize that your safety in traveling to the workshop and at the workshop is a priority for us. So the reason we're bringing this up is because, as many of you know, young people are increasingly invited to international meetings, regional meetings, country meetings, but there hasn't been much done to make sure that when young people participate in these meetings, that they're kept safe. So we plan on doing a few things that I would like to share with you and get your feedback on. The first is going to be around a code of conduct. So I have 2 slides here covering the code of conduct. So for all focal points, we will be requiring that everyone abide by to a code of conduct. This essentially means that focal points agree as to treat others with dignity and respect, set an example, they protect people's personal space and privacy, and that they're also aware of the fact that that there are power dynamics between especially youth focal points and possibly also CSO focal points and donors and government leaders. And that's to mean that all interaction should be appropriate. They shouldn't be using inappropriate language. We realize that unfortunately sexual harassment and sexual assault are a part of the reality of the world that we live in. And so we want to make sure that we're protecting against all possibilities for this, although we feel hopefully that it's relatively rare that this would happen at the workshop. But it's better to be prepared and to be thoughtful about this. So this is the code of conduct. These are some of the items in the code of conduct. Here are a few others that include, we're going to be sharing some best practices for bystander intervention. What this means is sharing what are you meant to do if you're witness to someone being sexually harassed or inappropriate behavior between, let's say, an older male focal point and a youth focal point. What are some of the things that you should or shouldn't be doing? I honestly learned quite a bit in helping to develop this code of conduct about some of the things we can all do to help mitigate sexual harassment in these kinds of settings, or in any setting that you may come across. And then we also want to make it clear that if you witness or if you experience anything that makes you feel uncomfortable at the workshop, of course you can come to me, Monday, or others. You can also write directly to this website or to this email that's here that goes to the UN Foundation, which is what who we FP 2020 work with. And depending on the severity of circumstances, please know that we're prepared to also contact authorities. So we don't want to scare you with this. We're not anticipating anything bad happening. We are, of course, you'll find that the workshop tends to be a very enjoyable, friendly environment where people are collaborative and supportive of one another. However, like I mentioned, we recognize that we live in the real world, and in the real world, bad things can happen. And so we want to make sure we have this code of conduct for all of our partners to make sure they're abiding by this. So we'll have this code of conduct, which I'll be very interested in your feedback on. We will also be taking some additional measures. As I mentioned, some of you are very well traveled and very comfortable going to and from the airport and on layovers, and however, not everyone is. So we want to make sure that with your travel, we're going to do the best we can to make sure you're departing your home country at a safe time, not in the middle of the night, and you won't be hopefully arriving in the middle of the night. However, because the youth pre-meeting is on a Sunday, you will all be arriving likely by yourselves, which is not ideal for safety. So this is why we're going to do our best to make sure you're traveling at safe times, and that hopefully you'll also be arriving around the same time so that we can coordinate with the hotel for your pickup to be in groups. We're going to do our best to do this. Some flight patterns don't allow for it, but we're going to do our best. And on the return, we will, unless you let us know otherwise, we will plan to have you return on the same flight as your other focal points, so you're not traveling alone. Within your hotel, we realize that sometimes it can be a little bit scary to go down a dark hallway by yourself to your room at the end of the hallway, and you might know you're the only young person on that floor. So we're going to avoid all of that. We are going to do our best to also, we are going to also make sure that your rooms are strategically placed so that you're not by yourself on a floor with all much older occupants. We're going to do our best to cluster you together to make sure you don't end up by yourself entering your room. As I mentioned, some of these efforts might seem over the top or too much for those of you who have traveled a lot, but we hope that you also appreciate that we're trying to think of this as best we can. We'll have an opt-in buddy system. I know some of you won't want to participate, but just in case you do, where, for instance, we'll pair Rose with Nina, and they'll let each other know, hey Nina, I'm actually going out of the hotel for dinner. I'll be back around this time. And the two of them will check in with one another just to make sure by the end of the evening that they're both safely back in their own hotel. And then the last thing is, we'll have group check-ins. As youth attending the workshop, we'll meet after each day just to see how it's going, give each other tips and advice. But this will also be a time where I plan on asking you all regularly, how are you feeling? Is there anything uncomfortable or strange happening between you and the other focal points or other people at the hotel even? We'll be working the best we can with the hotels to make sure they know that there is a code of conduct and that we expect their staff and their security to also abide by these, and to also make sure that they are abiding by that code of conduct. And fortunately, Eva has already confirmed that the hotel will definitely be there to pick you all up and drop you off at the hotel. There'll be coordinated airport pickups. So this may seem like too much, a little bit over the top, but we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to secure your safety as best we can during the workshop and around the workshop. So we hope that you all appreciate that as a measure of trying to ensure that we're being a good partner to you. Any questions?
Just a simple question. Hello?
Go ahead.
Just to understand now, in terms of travel on the ground, we just need to make plans. Is it covered as well, or is it something that we need to plan ahead in our minds? Not from the airport, but when we're at the hotel, sometimes we want to travel, or just to see to eat someplace else or something like that.
Sure. So as an attendee of the workshop, you will be receiving what's called a per diem. And that per diem accounts for incidentals, which can, includes things like, transport and whatnot. But for the most part, we, you can use that per diem as you see fit. It's intended to be used for any meals that aren't provided at the workshop. For instance, dinner is available at the hotel, of course, but is likely not to be covered unless it's related to reception, which is in the evening on Monday, which will have just small bites. But essentially, yes, if you are traveling, within Addis on your own to go get dinner in the evenings, that you should be prepared to arrange for that travel yourselves.
Yeah. Emily, could I add some additional details regarding the reimbursements?
Yes.
So thanks for those questions. So as Emily said, if it's helpful for you all, and you will be getting additional letters detailing out the exact amounts you will receive, but this will not be available until perhaps the week before travel. But just for your planning purposes, as Emily had earlier shared, we are financially going to cover the cost of all youth, civil society, and government focal points. The donor focal points provide their own financial support to attend these workshops, just for your reference. So what does this mean? So this means that, as Krista said earlier, we will cover and arrange your flights. So please be prompt in responding. Sometimes for some itineraries, there might be some choices. Other itineraries, there might only be one choice for you, but we would check with you to make sure this is based on your availability. So please look for those emails this week, as Krista said. Additionally, we will be providing information on the hotel of the workshop. We will be covering those costs. We will be making arrangements for that hotel room reservation. As Emily also mentioned, the hotel we have secured for the workshop is going to be providing airport pickup when you arrive and also airport drop-off when you depart. We at the Secretariat will also be in charge of arranging all of those details. We will also financially cover the cost of from your home city arriving to your home airport. You will have to arrange that yourselves. You will have to pay that in advance. Please retain all receipts for that, and we will reimburse you for that when you arrive to Addis. When you arrive to Addis, we will also send you a message early in that week of your arrival so that you can receive the per diem that Emily mentioned. During the workshop, the room lodging will also include breakfast at the hotel, so that is something you will not get any additional funding for. We will also provide lunch during all the days, so that is also not something that we will be reimbursing anyone for. You will receive some cash for out-of-pocket expenses like dinner and some incidentals that then you are free to spend or not as you choose, as Emily mentioned, but we will not be making arrangements for dinner, or if for people who would like to see something else of Addis in the evening perhaps, you will have to arrange that yourselves, as our team is small and we have limited capacity of being able to provide some support in that area. We will also cover the cost of a visa for countries that will need it. Again, we will ask you to pay that in advance when you incur that expense. Just save your receipt and we will reimburse you for that when we see you in Addis. Are there any questions or any additional information I can share regarding the financial reimbursements to make sure that that's clear?
That's good.
Okay. Let us know if you have other questions as you think of them, of course.
Great. So we have had you all on the line for an hour and 45 minutes already, which is quite long. I'm assuming you all have other things that you want to tend to in your life, but we're very happy that you've spent so long with us on the phone and on the computer. We really appreciate this initial opportunity to introduce ourselves to you. Again, to wish you congratulations on becoming focal points. You will hear from me for some immediate follow-up with these slides, a recording of this orientation, as well as a request, if you are a youth focal point, and your permission for me to use your phone number to set up a WhatsApp group. where we can continue the conversation and help to prepare for the workshop. That's what you'll be hearing from me, and you'll also be hearing from Krista or from Eva and Elinye about the workshop specifically. As Krista said, if you haven't submitted the photo of your, the front page photo of your passport where your picture and your details are, and if you haven't signed the travel waiver, please send those as soon as possible. That's very time sensitive. In addition, I would like to encourage you to look more closely over your country page on FP 2020's website. That will likely best prepare you as far as the essential documents that will be referenced during the workshop. So here's this website again. Take note of it and choose your country and see the different documents and data that's on there. And in addition, as Comfort had suggested, I would encourage you all to reach out to the focal points to find out when they're meeting up. If you haven't heard from them, when are they starting to put together the worksheet for the workshop? Be as proactive as you can. If you need support or you need us to help remind the focal points, do let us know. Of course, via WhatsApp is going to be an option soon once I set up the group, but email is also an option. So those are my recommendations for immediate things to do. Do my other colleagues have anything else to add as recommendations for immediate things to do?
No, not from us here. I think you covered almost everything.
Great. All right, everyone. Thank you again for your participation, and we really look forward to talking with you online and on WhatsApp, and then also to meeting you in Addis in Ethiopia in just a couple of weeks.
Thanks, Emily.
See you all soon.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. See you.
It's a group of young people. Everyone is like, thank you, bye, everyone.
Good bunch.
Yeah.
Well done, guys.
Very good.
Bye.